Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to a new episode of Pakistan Zindabad, where we see that power is won not only on the battlefield, but also in legal arenas. Today's battlefield is no longer confined to borders. It exists in courtrooms. It exists within sanctions regimes. It exists in international tribunals and UN chambers. This is called lawfare, when law itself is used as a weapon. In modern conflicts, legitimacy is secured first, the narrative control follows, and only then is strategy shaped. Whoever defines legality ultimately controls global perception. In episode 42, we will understand how Muslim NATO develops an institutional legal shield and a strategic legal sword to defend sovereignty, expose aggression, and neutralize hostile legal pressure. This is a war fought with documents before missiles, and the one who does not understand the legal battlefield may lose the strategic battlefield. This is lawfare, this is legal power, and this is the new strategic frontier.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to our channel Pakistan Zindabad, the next world superpower. This is episode 42 and we're diving deep into the book The Nuclear Umbrella by Mr. Zahir Ahmed Mir. Today we're going to explore a modern battlefield, one you're definitely not going to see on the news. This is a conflict fought not with tanks and drones, but with treaties and legal documents. We are entering the world of lawfare.
So, what's the big idea here? Well, the core concept we're digging into is this massive, fundamental shift in how conflicts are actually won and lost. The book makes a really compelling case that the most important battles, they're not happening on a physical frontline anymore. Instead, the real power plays are unfolding in courtrooms, in tribunals, and in the very language of international law itself.
And these conflicts, the ones won and lost through legal arguments, that's what the source calls lawfare. So in this explainer, here's our roadmap. We're going to break down the new rules of this war, figure out why some nations just seem to lose these legal battles, and then look at a blueprint for a kind of legal command center. We'll also get into the tactics, how lawfare is actually fought, and finally explore how a nation can build lasting legal sovereignty.
All right, let's jump right in with the fundamentals. What exactly is this new battlefield? What are the rules of engagement when the law itself is the weapon?
Okay, here it is, the core concept. Lawfare isn't just about litigation, it's the strategic weaponization of legal systems. Think of it like this. It's about taking the entire architecture of international justice, its rules, its courts, its norms, and using it not to achieve justice, but to achieve a strategic military or political goal against an opponent.
So how does this actually work in practice? Well, lawfare isn't just a single action. It's a whole coordinated campaign. It can involve misusing international law, launching very selective human rights lawsuits just to damage an enemy's reputation, or framing sanctions to make them look like a legal necessity. It's about turning treaties, UN resolutions, and even legal definitions into weapons to cripple an opponent.
Okay, so if this is the new battlefield, that raises a pretty big question. Why have some nations, and the source points particularly to Muslim states, historically struggled so much in this domain? The book points to a clear pattern of strategic failures.
And this gets to the core paradox. You see, states often feel they have the moral high ground. They might even win in the court of public opinion. But in the actual, formal courts of international law, the verdict is often a defeat. The key takeaway here is that a moral victory does not, and I repeat, does not automatically translate into a legal one. They're two totally different things.
So why does this happen? Well, the author points to several key failures. For starters, there's a lack of permanent legal war rooms. Legal teams are almost always reactive, only responding to attacks instead of being proactive. Different states often take fragmented, uncoordinated positions. And crucially, the systems for documenting and preserving evidence are often very weak. All of this is made worse by a real shortage of elite lawyers who were trained for this specific type of combat.
Now, in response to these deep, systemic weaknesses, the book doesn't just diagnose the problem. It proposes a really powerful, institutional solution, a way to centralize and professionalize the entire response.
The absolute centerpiece of this blueprint is something called the Muslim NATO Legal Command, or MNLC. Now, this isn't just some temporary committee. No, it's envisioned as a permanent, standing alliance structure. Its entire purpose is to institutionalize legal power, to turn it from a scattered, reactive defense into a coordinated, strategic capability.
So let's look at its core functions. It would handle pretty much everything, from the high-level strategy, like planning litigation years in advance, all the way down to the practical work of drafting treaties. It would coordinate responses to sanctions and, critically, provide unified legal positions, making sure the entire alliance speaks with one powerful legal voice.
And the whole purpose is to fundamentally transform the role of law for the alliance. It's no longer just a set of complicated rules you have to follow. With a structure like the MNLC, the law becomes both your shield to defend against legal attacks and your sword to proactively advance your interests and deter aggression.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how does this legal command center actually build a practical operational capability? Let's break it down. Where these battles are fought, what weapons are used, and how an offensive can be mounted.
First up, the arenas. And listen, we're not talking about a single courtroom. Lawfare is waged across a really complex global landscape. It's in the halls of the International Court of Justice, within UN committees, before obscure arbitration panels, through sanctions review bodies, and even in national courts that are asserting universal jurisdiction. The book argues that to be silent in these arenas is to basically consent to your opponent's narrative.
Now, to win in those arenas, you need a modern arsenal. But we're not talking about bombs. We're talking about proof. This means things like ironclad battlefield evidence, sophisticated digital forensics, and dedicated human rights documentation units. It also means integrating intelligence from satellites and open sources. You know, public data and social media. The goal is to create these pipelines of proof that are legally undeniable in court.
And this whole structure isn't just for playing defense. The source outlines a strategy for what it calls offensive lawfare to create deterrence. This means proactively exposing an adversary's war crimes, legally challenging unjust sanctions and imposing your own counter-sanctions, pursuing asset recovery through litigation, filing for reparations, and aggressively pushing back against the overreach of foreign courts. The point is to make it legally and financially painful for an adversary to act against you.
So, the final piece of this strategic puzzle isn't just about winning a single case. It's about building a sustainable, long-term advantage that secures a nation's sovereignty in this whole new domain of conflict.
According to the source, this requires deep, generational investment. We're talking about creating major institutions, like a Muslim International Law Academy, which is proposed to be hosted in Pakistan to train future generations. It means funding permanent elite litigation teams, grooming your own top-tier candidates for positions as judges and arbitrators, mastering the art of treaty negotiation, and even achieving dominance in the very language and interpretation of international law.
And this all builds towards the core doctrine presented in the book. It's a really stark warning. In the 21st century, legal vacuums just don't exist. If you don't proactively shape the definition of what is legal and what is just, your adversaries will do it for you. And trust me, they will do it to their advantage. So, the ultimate takeaway from this blueprint is a profound question about power. As warfare evolves, the ability to write and interpret the rules becomes the ultimate expression of sovereignty. The source argues that whoever controls the law, well, they control the future. And that brings us to the end of this explainer on the concept of lawfare from Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir's The Nuclear Umbrella. It's a truly fascinating and frankly a very important look at a new dimension of global strategy. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. If you found this valuable, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Your support helps us keep making content just like this, and we have so much more we want to explore together. Thank you again for everything, and we cannot wait to see you in the next one.